very happy to see that you came with so many today to see my presentation. My name is Pauline Van Dongen. I'm a fashion innovator from the Netherlands. And I'm also the CEO of the company that carries the same name. And we're specialized in the design and development of wearable technology. And my interest in fashion started with a fascination for the human body. As a young girl, I was dancing a lot. And in high school, I was drawn to biology, physics, and science. At that time, I even still wanted to study medicine. But even though I then ended up studying fashion, this experimental and scientific approach still remained a very strong aspect and characteristic of my work. So as I went to art school, this fascination for the human body translated into a fascination not only for the human body, but the relationship between the body and space, or more specifically, the interaction between our body and clothing. And fashion can be so self-evident. I mean, we're dressed all the time. And that's why we tend to forget that it's in fact a very powerful medium. It influences a lot how we feel and how we act, both physically and emotionally. And because of this very intimate dialogue between our body and clothing, I think it's the perfect medium to integrate technology in a very intuitive way. So being a fashion designer myself, I think grants me the permission to be very critical and to say that the fashion industry is in need for change. The big luxury houses are struggling, look at Burberry or Prada, and the fast fashion chains are still causing 30% of their production to end up in landfill. 5 years ago, I started my own business. I started a design studio to propose a new direction, one that shows how interactive behavior, new materials, and digital tools can bring new meaning and value to fashion. In my studio, we develop visionary concepts and prototypes, and we like to go beyond what is existing, while keeping 2 feet on the ground and making things real with a very pragmatic approach as well. So all of our work is based on interdisciplinary collaboration. And today I'd like to give you some insight in what my work entails, because moving and mediating between different disciplines has given me a rich perspective and an understanding of the challenges that both industries face. And I can also identify the opportunities that I see there. So when talking about wearable technology in a daily context, most people will often think about fitness trackers. But to me, it's not just about measuring biometrics. Wearable technology is about creating new forms of expression. And we should in fact capitalize on the fact that fashion is something that is worn. It becomes a part of us. And this is the biggest potential. The biggest potential is to integrate technology so that it can enhance our embodied experience. But I think most of you know that it's not that simple, because technology is seen as something that's harsh, metallic, it's cold and distant, whereas fashion and textiles need to be soft, close to the skin and flexible. So the goal is to naturalize these technologies, make it personal, emotional, fitting with our lifestyles, and accepted by society, up until the point that the technology is in fact becoming invisible, whether physically or in our minds. So I'm very happy to be here today. I think most fashion designers would maybe have no clue what to do on such a conference, but for me, this conference and this exhibition is actually kind of a playground. Because, like Kevin Kelly also says, technology gives us new choices, new possibilities. And these possibilities in fashion, they can provide solutions, they can surprise us. And through these technologies, we might feel and experience new things, or we might become aware of things that were previously unknown to us. We can extend our capabilities. About 2 years ago, I was invited to start a PhD research at the University of Technology in Eindhoven. And this program is called Crafting Wearables, and is focused on developing wearable technology that is on one hand fashionable, but also robust and scalable. And very early on in my PhD, I started drafting this landscape to understand what was the current status of these technologies and how do I place myself in it. And what I soon realized is that a lot of these designs, even though amazing and fascinating, they end up in the haute couture utopian realm. So if we cut to the problem here, we have to move beyond prototypes. We have to make these designs scalable and accessible. And now, 2 years later, when I open a fashion magazine, these developments are still nowhere to be seen. So I think we should ask ourselves, why is the fashion industry not involved yet? Is it lacking design sensibility? Are these designs not desirable enough? And how can we make it relevant and useful from this fashion perspective? And to start with, I think it's important to realize how working with technology impacts a design practice. And I've defined 4 main areas or design principles. So in terms of material, you can think of the integration of conductive yarns using knitting or using weaving techniques, embroidery, using printed electronics. In terms of form, technology, of course, working with circuitry impacts the construction of your garment and the shapes that you can create, the pattern pieces that unfold. The process is largely affected because you have to collaborate with a lot of different parties. And of course the experience, because as a design becomes interactive, it plays a totally different role in people's lives. So today I want to focus on 3 examples of my work as case studies, and we will zoom in on these different areas that I just explained. And those 3 case studies only show a small fragment of my work, I would say, because working with technology has opened up the scope of my projects. I no longer work only in high fashion. My work is applied within medical industries, within protection, clothing, and automotive. And I think one of the most important things to start with is that integration is key. The technology needs to be embedded into the textile or even eventually into yarns. And highlighted below are some of the partners that I work with, and as you can see, it's an interesting mix between technology companies as well as textile and garment manufacturers. The first case study is Wearable Solar. This is a project that I started in 2013, and you can call it an ongoing research basically, into how to create designs that can harvest energy using solar cells. It started with the notion of connectivity and providing people energy wherever they go. The first design that we created was a dress, a high fashion dress that was picked up internationally and became a finalist at the South by Southwest Accelerator Awards in 2014. So the dress was displayed and flying over the world, but at the same time, I immediately realized that this was something that was not scalable at all. If you look at the picture on the left, this is the inside of the dress. It involved a lot of handwork, there was electrical wire, a lot of moving between the soldering iron and then the sewing machine, which of course is something that can never be done within a regular fashion manufacturing company. But nevertheless, this prototype was a conversation starter with industry. One of the companies that I started talking to was Hall Center, and their technology is visible on the right side. They're specialized in printed, flexible electronics. So let me now first zoom in on the impact that this technology has on the work process. I think one of the first things that comes to mind is the language that we use. Because in such processes, we have to develop a mutual understanding about definitions that might seem self-evident. I mean, what is flexible within technology and what is flexible within the textile industry? What do we regard as something that's design or style, and what is comfort? The second aspect is that we have to align our interest. What I've experienced a lot is that technology companies, they want to make a striking design for PR activities. They want to make a demonstrator. And even though these can be amazing and triggering our imagination, giving a speculative idea about the future of fashion, such bold designs, they can easily hide bulky electronics. But often a more refined piece, something that can be worn daily, is what will really push us ahead. So for the development of solar garments, Horst and I started collaborating, and we started using flexible electronics, printed electronics, combined with solar cells. And we set out together to create a t-shirt. And the reason for that was that we wanted to show the present day use of this design and show the reality of it. And the opportunity that these flexible electronics gave me was the fact that I could play around more freely with the placement of the cells. The initial dress had 2 strips of solar cells, whereas now I could really make different configurations with them. And instead of simply applying the cells to a finished t-shirt, the design and technology were both informing each other. And I think as a designer, it's a challenge to come up with new types of constructions. So in this case, for instance, if we look at the form of the t-shirt, since we were working with lamination processes of these printed electronics, we wanted the full garment to be laid flat during those processes. And obviously, a normal t-shirt has a front panel, a back panel, and 2 sleeves. So in this case, I was challenged to come up with a pattern piece that would create the full design at once. And this is the kind of exchange that I'm looking for within wearable technology. So the result was this t-shirt, which contains 120 thin film solar cells. Basically, it charges a phone in optimal conditions within 1.5 hours. It has a small rechargeable battery in its pocket, so that you can continuously store the energy and even use it at nighttime. At the moment, we're even upgrading this battery system to inductive charging so that you no longer need any wires. And here, there are again 2 aspects that I want to point out. The first one is that technology, here you can see the wiring, the circuitry is very visible, but in fact it's becoming an aesthetic. The circuit is a graphic feature that adds something to the shirt, and it brings a new type of materiality and expression to fashion. And this quality can be also tied to the desirability of the design. So even when the design is not functional, imagine wearing something like this, or here we have a male shirt, wearing it at nighttime. You still want to look good in it and feel good in it, even if it's not functional at that time. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind. The other thing is that fashion is becoming an interface. It's mediating actively between our body and the surroundings. As a wearer, you're becoming a user and you're constantly in touch with the energy that the shirt provides you, while the shirt is in continuous interaction with the sun. Let me now show you a video.
Yeah, the most important thing I think is to enhance our clothing through these technologies. This whole idea about generating energy through your clothing, that should be one of the things that people take away from it. Creating like the garment is becoming an interface, so it's not something that's statically enveloping your body, you're actively using it, and also the shirt is continuously interacting with its surroundings, like in this case the sun. So it's like mediating between your body and the surroundings, so it's becoming like a whole new feeling or a new experience for fashion and for people. Not some far-fetched future scenario that we're talking about. It's actually becoming reality. It's integrating in our actual daily lives.
To me, we really need something like this, because right now everything is just collapsing on itself. Also, the electronics, they are designed in a way that you can bend the fabric. So yeah, altogether the lamination of these electronics on the cells is very wearable.
So with this video, we really wanted to show that this design really ties into people's lifestyles, and there's an emotional connection there. But what I need to point out here is that there's not one singular solution. I keep exploring many different directions, and for instance, this is one of the last members of our solar family, which is a solar parka developed with a society in the north of Holland that protects the Wadden area. And this shows us different ways to overcome the barriers of production and washability, because in this case, we worked with a modular solar panel that can be attached and removed from the pocket. So it also simplifies the manufacturing process and allows us to do repairs on the panel when necessary. And in terms of form, we need to keep in mind that we're talking about something that's tailored to the body. So also we're talking about tailored technology. We have to anticipate on making it modular and versatile, because people are not the same. I mean, think about different lifestyles, different ages, different gender, and different trends that are below this line of thinking. So I don't intend to give you any hard facts or figures today, but I do want to point out that in order to bridge the gap between fashion and wearable technology, the design and the function should be regarded equally important. And I think the best bond can be created when we start cross-linking these functional aspects with design aspects. So combining the design parameters on one hand with the functional and technological requirements on the other hand. And to me, the future of fashion lies in its premise to be dynamic, adaptive and changing, just like our fluid and liquid surroundings that are already becoming increasingly smarter. What I can show you here is a video of a material that I developed 2 years ago. Basically, it's an analog representation of how I see fashion becoming dynamic and evolving in the future. It's a laser-cut neoprene with a swirling line pattern that basically becomes animated as soon as you start moving in it. And to make these materials dynamic, we have to zoom in on materiality. We have to focus on different aspects of these materials. In 2009, I created the first fully 3D printed shoe, which at that time was very rigid. It was a hard nylon plastic. And last year, I created a new design, which was made for one of the ministers of Holland. And we used a flexible filament that allowed us to create different material behavior in different areas of the shoe. So some parts were very flexible and soft, other parts were rigid and supportive. And I think working with these technologies can also create new ideas about existing technologies. If we look at seamless whole garment knitwear, it's quite the same like 3D printing. It's basically engineering your design stitch by stitch and informing every stitch with a specific behavior and characteristic. Earlier on, I mentioned that I aim to create new values and meaning for fashion. And I think one of those values can be the aspect of personalization. With the rise of the Industrial Revolution, the qualities of a tailor basically disappeared. But I think if we move back to digital tools and digital design, we can create customized design and start producing in a very different way. So instead of only using hardware, I'm also very drawn to using different types of software. And one of those is the use of generative design or plugins like Grasshopper. And here we create patterns that are no longer static, but they're infinitely variable and unique. And we use body data such as 3D scans to apply those patterns to a specific body and create unique pieces. And here again, I experience how valuable it is to move between disciplines, because knowledge on Grasshopper and generative design generally comes from architecture. And then obviously, it's always a question how to materialize these digital designs and how they behave outside of the screen. So these geometries that you see here, for instance, are based on exotic principles. Let me show you one of those. So after developing them digitally, we explore their behavior on the body and we see how these patterns can conform to the human body, how they create stratified layers that potentially could hold solar cells and reduce the stress and strain on them, and how we can create two-dimensional surface, moving to three-dimensional surface that change intention, that change the support on the body, for instance. And here we've worked with a rhomboid pattern that became three-dimensional upon stretch. So the last project that I want to show you is a project that I did last year, which is called Phototro, which basically came from my own frustration as a runner. It's an illuminated sportswear top. As a runner, I was always running with these silly light armbands, and most of the time the battery was low and it was not comfortable anyway. And I thought, as a designer working with wearable technology, I should know how to do this better and how to integrate something that's also desirable. And I think starting from this, I started with working with LED textile ribbons. And of course, you could simply sew them onto a garment and then you have an illuminated design. But I started looking for materials that could enhance the effect of the light, and it could also add something to the experience of the design. Because I think in order to move beyond the gadget and the techno aspect of these designs, we have to create something that even without using the technologies should still look and feel great. So I ended up finding these prismatic foils, and I placed these LED ribbons, which are completely washable, behind these foils to create a very interesting light behavior. And here you see some of the specifications. The design is fully washable. We've already created 20 of these designs, and we started user testing them with a group of runners. And in order to do so, we actually added some new components. We integrated some light sensors so that the light in the shirt can accommodate to surrounding light levels. We also created an application that allows a trainer to play different type of games and exercises with his team. And on the right hand you see the team running through the night. So here you see the effect of the light. So I think for the fashion industry, they have to anticipate and develop new business models. Because if I'm talking about all the waste that's in fashion and how people lose the idea of value, I think that designs need to have a lasting impact, especially when we integrate technology. They need to have a longer life cycle, and therefore fashion companies should start integrating offering services to their customers. We should think about how designs can be updated so that they have new capabilities over time. My goal is to collaborate with technology companies and fashion brands to collaboratively tap into the right markets using existing manufacturing and sales channels. And we can see that the boundaries disappear because textile simply is everywhere. It's a versatile product with which we can tap into awareness, intimate connectivity, create a feeling of comfort and support instead of alienating or distracting us from the world. So we're creating a closer bond here. So I hope I've inspired you to start exploring the soft, textile embodied side of wearable technology. Thank you.